Good morning, everybody. This is What Does the Bible Say? My name is Caleb Robertson. I am an evangelist with the Church of Christ, and in this area it's the Martinsville congregation. I'll go ahead and tell my producer we don't have a monitor already, but that's okay. He's getting on it. It's the Martinsville congregation and the Danville congregation. Martinsville meets at 823 Starling Avenue, and Danville meets at 120 American Legion Boulevard in Danville. Right behind, it's off of North Main, right behind the old Dutch shopping center. And we meet every Sunday at 10 a.m. for Bible class and 11 a.m. for our worship. And Martinsville has an extra hour in the morning. They do 9 a.m., 10 a.m., and 11 a.m. Now, this is our contact information. My phone number is 276-806-3641. And my email is calebgrobertson@gmail.com. And if you email me there, we will get you on the weekly informer list, and we're doing a series right now, Unprepared for Romans. And what that means is why people, if they decide, they make up in their mind they're going to read the book of Romans, why they're unprepared for it. It's like, you pick any series of books. If it's a 5-part series and you say, well, I'm just going to start, reading number 3, you're not going to have a clue what's going on. And so there are principles like that to studying the Bible, and particularly the book of Romans. So if you email me at calebgrobertson@gmail.com, we will get that to you in your email inbox every Sunday morning. It's a page-and-a-half Bible article. And this morning, now we're broadcasting locally through local television in Martinsville. I'm in Star News right now. People are watching locally on Star News. And so what we let people know is if you get your smartphone, your tablet, laptop, desktop, what have you, a smart TV, you can use your remote control to type it in on YouTube through your TV. You can let people know about What Does the Bible Say on YouTube. And the way that you find that is just put in Johnny Robertson's name. His picture will come up. That's the purple and white banner. You'll see the click live option, and we want, like we always say, your cousin Ted in Wisconsin. If you think What Does the Bible Say is good information, then be letting your friends know about it. We have people that are watching in multiple states, and even individuals who are watching outside of the United States. And we're doing this because we want Bible information to go out. We don't do creed books. I had somebody talking to me the other day about, they said, yeah, you use creed books. No, I'm teaching the Bible. I'm going straight from the Bible. That's what we want to do with this broadcast. So you get in touch with us outside of the broadcast if you want to ask more Bible questions. If you want to set up a face-to-face, me and you, we sit down, we talk about religion. I'm fine to do that, more than happy to do that with you. 276-806-3641. The purpose of these morning broadcasts are, we're doing it's like a school. We're trying to go through the whole Bible in a short amount of time. And we're doing this because ultimately we want to help people better understand the Bible. And so we're doing the best that we can at that. Someone says, well, it's like all the stuff that people could say. I'm going to stop talking to those few people who are naysayers. But we say, but help you better know your Bible without moving across the country. But if you are so inclined to move across the country, 2 Chronicles 11:14 and 2 Chronicles 15:9 show where the Levites and about 3 or 4 other tribes moved from the north to the south because they wanted to be with the righteous individuals. And so if you basically say, I want to be with a group of people who are trying their hardest to teach sound doctrine while being gracious at the same time, you can do both, and they are evangelistic people, then yeah, you could actually make up in your mind to move here. Like I said some time ago, they just refurbished an apartment complex like 30 seconds away from the Martinsville Church building. And then the second reason, prep you for evangelism. You're getting experience in your backyard. If you go door knocking, you can meet people who have different ways of thinking than you do, and that's going to educate you. The world is your classroom. 2 Timothy 2:2, we're trying to teach other people so that they can then teach other people. That's what we're doing. And we invite you to come to the Sunday morning class, Studying Sin Seriously. We've been going through sins like corrupt communication, unmerciful, deceit, lying. These are things that we need to be up on. Number one, so that we don't do them, and number two, so that we can spot when people are doing them to us. We're trying to protect one another. That's what a study of sin is about, is protecting individuals. Old Testament study aids. This morning you and I are going to continue talking about the Old Law. I think I said last week we'll do one more. Today we're going to have our discussion. Next week will be our last, for you and me, our last talk about the Old Testament, just particular laws. But these are some of the books that I would recommend. If you're going to study the first 5 books of Moses and then on, histories and the prophets, what have you. This book is called The Law of Moses, and it's written by a man named Chambliss, Dr. Chambliss, Law of Moses. If you can find that, we have talked about trying to get it reprinted. It's pretty hard to find. Evenings with the Bible, Volumes 1 and Volume 2, those are Isaac Errett's Old Testament studies. I'd recommend those books to you. And this morning, this is what we're doing. We're looking at some of the law so that we can get the sum of the law. You get what I'm saying? We're just going to look at a few portions here and there, but we're trying to get the overall understanding. And what we have seen so far, someone says, well, the Old Testament is a whole bunch of rules. Well, these are some, let's look at the Bible, let's look at the New Testament, what it says about the Old Testament. Look at 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse number 7. He said, now, verse number 7 is, I would say he's rebuking some folk. He said, they desire to be teachers of the law, understanding neither what they say nor whereof they affirm. And then he says in verse number 8, we know the law is good if a man use it lawfully. So a lot of people, like we said, Richard Dawkins is a very famous atheist today, and he likes to pick on the Old Testament. He says the Old Testament God is a maniacal, sexist bully. Well, if you look at Hebrews 13:8, you're not going to be able to say the Old Testament God is different than the New Testament God. It says Jesus Christ the same yesterday, today, and forever. So God in His personage, His nature, He doesn't change just because He changed certain things involved in the laws and the covenants. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So let's do this. We're going through, we say the law is good. Someone says it's just a bunch of rules, but it's rules, but it doesn't really deal with the intents of the heart. We studied last time. Yes, it does. Romans 7, about 14 through 16, he says the law is spiritual. It deals with the heart. Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy by itself, over 30 times, 30 separate verses mentions the heart of man. It's a document that deals with the heart. It's a document that says, Leviticus 19, love your neighbor, right? You have multiple passages where you don't just, who is your neighbor? Well, even your enemy is counted as your neighbor, and you have to be concerned about them. We have to be doing good to each other. It shows us all these different rights that we have. It warns us not to infringe on other people's rights. It's a very, very good document. I'm telling you. You go over to Romans 15:4. You'll hear this in a lot of sermons. Romans 15, learning that we through patience and comfort of the Scriptures might have hope. Now you're going to hear that a lot, but I'm saying by and large, people are not very, and I'm not trying to knock anybody, I'm just saying the way that it is. People are not very good students of the Old Testament. I'm trying to get better. I think there's a lot of value in studying your Old Testament, whether you're doing character studies or you're doing a general study of the Law of Moses like we're doing right now, and you get to see the inner workings of these principles. Y'all, there are so many people out there that are just abusing the Bible. They don't even try to be honest. I'm all for, let's be honest. Don't misrepresent somebody's position. If you disagree with it, really answer it for what it is. Don't turn it into something that it's not. Really be honest. And I just wish that people would do that with me, a Christian, and a full Bible believer. I'm not underneath the laws of the Old Testament, but I do believe it's inspired information. And so this is what we're going to do today. Does the Old Testament hate women? See, this lady's got her face in her hands. She's distraught. Somebody, made her mad, and some Bible thumper made her mad, and then you got all these different women that look different. Someone says, well, the Old Testament, they all look different, but the Old Testament hates them equally. No, you're going to hear that a lot. You're going to hear people call it a sexist document, a misogynistic document. They're going to be really knocking the Old Testament. And we need to do a better job of defending it. Someone would very quickly just brush this off and say, well, I'm not even underneath the Old Testament. Wait a second. You can't just let them, attack a portion of God's Word. If you're going to come to your New Testament, Hebrews 13:8, God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. So you can't just say, well, forget about that, it's the Old Testament. No, I think there's actually a clear, an honest way to deal with these charges, and I think that we ought to deal with them. And so let me talk to you real quick. Somebody says, Caleb has spent the last couple of weeks talking about these old law principles, and you say, I'm not too into that. I hear a lot of people who would just straight up say, I'm a New Testament student. You're an ignorant student if you're just going to come out and say, I'm a New Testament student only. You do not understand your New Testament without your Old Testament. So you can't just knock the classes, right? You can't just come in and say, well, I just studied the New Testament. Okay. So, but here's my thing, y'all. I am trying to help you with evangelism. You're going to come up, you're going to talk to somebody, you've got to evangelize to the agnostics, you have to evangelize to the skeptics, you have to evangelize to the atheists. Now, let me show you a point here. Hey, I understand in Acts 16, look at this. It says, verse number 7, when they were come to Mysia, they essayed to go to Bithynia, but the Spirit suffered them not. And passing by Mysia, they came down to Troas. We want to go a little bit further. We want to get down to where Lydia is, and thence to Philippi, which is a chief city of the part of Macedonia and a colony, and were in that city abiding certain days. And on the Sabbath, we went out of the city by the riverside, where prayer was known to be made. Now, here's my point. In a lot of these situations, a lot of these cities, Paul would quickly direct himself to the already religious crowd, right? He said, these are religious folk. They at least believe in God. Let's go try to talk to them and persuade their way of thinking. So when I talk to you about, this is an evangelism tip, right? When I talk to you about talking to skeptics and atheists and agnostics, you basically say, well, I'd rather just bypass them and I'd rather go talk to the people who are already religious. Okay, I understand that. There's some New Testament precedent for that. But at the end of the day, somebody has to talk to them, right? And here's a second thought about that. Number one, they need the gospel in their own right as an individual. But number two, those of us who know the truth, we are going to have to educate ourselves so that we can answer the vocal atheists, the vocal agnostics, who are actually then in turn teaching the next generation these skeptic arguments, right? You basically take these teachers, they're skeptics, and they just tell people the Old Testament is very, very sexist. And then the people in the audience they gasp, oh, I never knew that. But this guy who has a degree of some form, he said so. So I'm really this morning trying to help us get a better handle on the Old Testament, just so when you go out door knocking or you're in a Bible study and somebody says, well, I've always heard that the Old Testament is a sexist document, we're going to be able to answer that. Now here's a news story, just so you know that it's out there. And I know you know it's out there. Houston Chronicle, it is time for evangelicals to stop using biblical authority to justify systemic misogyny. So do you see what they're saying? You got Donald Trump. How many failed marriages has Donald Trump had? I think he's on his third marriage. Donald Trump is an adulterer, right? Donald Trump is not a Christian. And this news article says people are using the Bible to justify systemic misogyny. So, right, do you get that? Some people say, I don't know what that word is. It's disdain for just a particular sex group of the two genders. You don't like this particular gender and it's not based on anything in particular. But some people are saying, Houston Chronicle says, that religious folk are using the Bible to promote sexism. Okay, so here's what I'm doing. I'm saying, y'all, just on the surface before we get going, okay? The Houston Chronicle comes out and they say that religious people use the Bible to put women down. They say you consistently keep women down, and you're going to hear people talk about the patriarchy, and it's a man's system. James Brown, it's a man's world. And so I'm ready just to talk about that this morning, and I hope that you're ready to go with me. Let's do this. We're going to have a lot of Bible passages this morning, so hopefully you have your own King James wide margin. You get your wide margin so you can put your notes in there. Y'all, we're going to be looking at Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. If you get yourself a wide margin, you are going to be able to make really chart and graph all and interweave your Old Testament together. You and I are going to get to be doing studies that hardly, very, very few people get to do. We are this morning we're very fortunate to get to have a 2-hour class together. You know, a lot of the folk out here, they have these 40-minute classes and they don't have time to cover enough ground. They waste a lot of time in their 40-minute class. Everybody has to joke around at the beginning, and then we finally get going, and then once we get going, the bell's ring. Y'all, we're getting to go deep, right? We're getting to really interweave all of our Old Testament, the Pentateuch, the Law of Moses, whatever you want to call it, and we're doing it to get understanding so that we can be evangelistic. Now, here's my question. Somebody says to you, you're trying to talk to them about religion, real, I'm saying Bible religion, and they say, well, you know, I've always heard that the Old Testament is a sexist document. Number one, you know, I'm all for, this is what I say, keep them out of the driver's seat. They don't have a clue about the Bible. You need them to start understanding their sin, right? It's like they don't do things. Here's my point. They're not guilty of sin while they're picking on people in the Old Testament. Okay, you know, there's a lot of sin that happened in the Old Testament, but what about you, right? Do something like that. Keep them out of the driver's seat because they don't have a clue where they're going. But here's my next point. If you want to just get into it a little bit with them, just on the surface, they say, well, I've always heard that the Bible is a sexist document that keeps women down underneath the patriarchy. Okay, here's my question. You say the Old Testament is sexist. Where do I learn how to treat women? Okay? You're going to say, well, good examples of people. Okay, here's my thing. Y'all, husbands and wives hit each other. Husbands and wives yell at each other. So everybody looks at another couple, every married couple looks at another couple and says, I bet they never fight. We had some friends, they would look at me and my wife, and the wife of our friend said, I bet Caleb and his wife never fight. And we fight. And then my wife looks at another couple and she says, I bet they never fight. And I told the husband that my wife said that, and he laughed. He said, yeah, we fight. And then he said, we're fighting right now. And, I don't know. But see what I'm saying? Where do I get my idea of how to treat women? Because if you say, well, you get it from example, everybody's flawed. You know what I'm saying? They're imperfect. There's no such thing as a perfect marriage. You can have a healthy marriage, but there's no such thing as a perfect marriage. But here's my question. If I'm not learning from the Bible, an established, authoritative document that came from a higher being, where do I get my information on how to treat women? That's what I would ask them right now. See, I'm back in the driver's seat. I didn't let them stay in the driver's seat very long. It's fine that they're attacking the Bible, but when they start attacking the Bible, you have to replace it with something, because I'm saying this is a fantastic, authoritative document that came from a higher being beyond the human race, okay? You don't like it. Well, what are we going to put in its place? And what are we going to put in its place that's universal and that expands beyond culture? Right? Because someone says, well, I don't like American culture. Well, how about you try Middle Eastern culture and see what you get out of that? But here's my point, y'all. If I don't listen to the Bible, who do I listen to? Y'all, honestly, come on. The people who are trying to basically spoon feed you this new brand of what they call morality, Hollywood, I am not going to listen to anybody from Hollywood. You got Harvey Weinstein serving a 23-year sentence, and I will tell you, I don't keep up with it. It's like, I never thought that Hollywood was going to be our moral compass, so it's like I don't stay abreast of all the stuff that's going on, but I'm saying from Harvey Weinstein to people who said, oh, I never thought that he would be the one, and I'm saying, y'all, Bill Cosby got into trouble. Honestly, I'm not justifying at all what people do, but I'm saying everybody's going to have something, right? People start digging up Hollywood's old tweets. You get banned. I'm saying some of these people are perverts, but, I'm saying everybody's got something. I'm not going to listen to these people, right? I'm not going to listen to these people tell me how to treat women. So basically, here's the argument. You go to the New Testament and someone says, well, I don't like the Bible. Why? Well, the New Testament says women can't preach in the assembly. Okay, so what do you think about Hollywood, where Harvey Weinstein says, sleep with me. If you want this job, crawl in bed. I don't know all the ins and outs of how it worked with Bill Cosby. I didn't keep up with any of that. However that stuff happened, it was happening all over the place. We had the whole thing where people just found out that Hollywood, like they needed to find out at that moment, is just this cesspool of mistreating women, right? So who am I going to listen to? Now let's look at this point. Hollywood, this is just a brief moment, y'all. Who do you want me to listen to? You basically throw this back at people. They say, well, I don't like the Bible, it's sexist. So do y'all know about Woody Allen? Woody Allen, in any movie he ever made, was this old dude who always got this really young woman, and that's how his movies worked. And then you know what? Woody Allen wanted his movies to become real life. He and his wife at the time adopt this little Asian girl, and then years later he leaves his wife for the adopted daughter. Now let's take a moment. Okay, this is what does the Bible say? You trying to be on live TV?
Kale.
Yes.
This is Eugene.
Hello, Eugene. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just happened to tune in to listen to you.
Okay.
And let me ask you a question.
Okay.
And I believe, in fact, I'm pretty sure you're going to give me the correct answer.
Okay.
Don't the Bible tell you how to treat women?
I didn't hear you. I didn't understand what you said.
I said the Bible tell a man how to treat a woman.
That's right.
I mean, it's right there in the Bible. And so I just happened to have been listening to you, and you were talking about Hollywood and all like that. That's what's wrong with us now. We listen to a whole lot of garbage. If we just only go by what the Bible says, then that's it.
That's it. Now, I've got on the screen 1 Peter 3:7. Now, this is Eugene Grant calling in, and he says the Bible clearly says how a husband should treat his wife. In 1 Peter 3, verse number 7, it says, husbands, give honor unto your wife. So he's right. And also it says how wives should treat their husband. They give respect.
Absolutely right.
We give honor. It's very, very clearly stated, but we got a little bit of time for us to build up to it. Okay. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Now, he said it. It's very, very clear. I mean, this is the text. You give honor to your wife. And so I'll go ahead and tell you all a story while we're here. As unto the weaker vessel. Now that's where someone's going to have a cow. So Eugene Grant calls in. He says, well, the Bible says how to treat your wife, and he's right. You give honor to your wife. But then someone's going to say, yeah, but the rest of that verse, I don't like that, where they say, as unto the weaker vessel. So if we're all being honest, and you're not really like having to think about everything that you say, my wife just had her wisdom teeth taken out, and so when they finish, they come out, they get me, they say, okay, you can come back and get her. And so I go back, and the woman is telling me like how to take care of her when we get home, do this, do that. And so she says, can you stand up? And she's like, nah, I don't know. So we stand her up. She starts laughing, I start laughing, and she says, I got to sit down. She can't stop laughing. And so I say to the nurse, I said, y'all, like, is this just every time? And she said, well, it varies. And she said, people laugh. She said, people can't get over the confusion of where am I? And she said, we have to answer the same question like 5 times. And she said, and then a lot of people, she said, they wake up and just start crying. And she said, really? She said, only the ladies. And she said, because they're a bit more emotional. Now, do you see that? I'm saying if me and my wife start fighting, she might cry. I'm not going to cry. I could be upset. I've argued with my sister before. She just starts crying. I'm not crying. I'm saying in the discussion, crying doesn't get you anywhere, but they just do it. And that's exactly what that nurse said. Now, someone's not going to like me saying that, but I'm saying if we're all being honest, she just had this moment and she said, females, she said, are a bit more emotional when they just wake up from having their, and she said, it's not that they're in pain. She said, they don't feel anything at all. She said, they're not in pain, they're just crying. We all know it. That doesn't mean inferior, right? It's not anything like that. But if we're being honest, we're made differently. Someone says, well, you're both human. I know that, but we're made differently. I've never read the book, but I'm saying, y'all, what y'all gonna do with that book? Just totally discard it? What is it called? Women are from Venus, men are from Mars. Y'all know that you're different. So what's wrong with this? We give honor to the wife, acknowledging that they are a more fragile vessel. I don't understand why that's a problem. Let's get back to this. If I'm just throwing the Bible away, where do I learn on how to treat women? So Woody Allen, leaves his wife and marries, I don't know if he marries, but he gets with their adopted daughter. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp had been married to this one woman for years, like since the 90s, I think. They had 2 kids together. And then out of nowhere, Johnny Depp leaves his longtime wife and he gets with this really young actress, and then that falls apart. I'm going to tell you. I'll just leave that alone. Then you have Jude Law. I'm going to tell you what I was going to say because I don't want anybody thinking like bad about what I was going to say. I don't think that he did half of what that woman says he did. But now let's look at this. Jude Law. Jude Law got 6 kids with 4 different women. Come on. You're telling me that I can't use the Bible on how to make a marriage work, how to court a lady. Court, right? You go courting. I can't use the Bible. So who do I use? Who is my moral compass? These dudes? No, thank you. Come on. You don't want me to treat you the way these men treat women. Now, that's Hollywood. How about this? How about politicians? Y'all, if I can't get in Hollywood, okay, I get it from D.C., right? I learned how to treat women from these clean politicians. No, thank you. You know that's a bad idea. Bill Clinton, Monica Lewinsky, JFK, you can read anything about JFK and Bobby, and they will just be these noted fornicators, right? Lyndon B. Johnson, huge womanizer. All different people from the inner workings of Lyndon B. Johnson's time frame said he had illegitimate children, caught multiple times in various places in adulterous affairs, right? I'm not following these people. That's my thing. Y'all got to get off this stuff about presidents. They are commander-in-chief. They are not your preacher. Someone talking about, oh, is the moral vote. I ain't no moral vote. I don't know what Bill Clinton would identify as, if he is even religious at all, or LBJ. JFK was a Catholic. And then I'm saying right now, how many women have come out against Cuomo talking about, what is it, some form of sexual assault? He's got all kinds of accusations come out, and remember, some time ago they said, you believe every woman, regardless of what she's saying. Well, I'm not going to get it from these people. And then let's talk about this. If I'm not getting it from Hollywood, I'm not getting it from the politicians. Let's put Donald Trump in there. Donald Trump is a 2-time adulterer. He's in his 3rd marriage. All these folk. Don Jr. Don Jr. is divorced. He's got a girlfriend. Here's what I'm saying, y'all. These people are not your compass. What are they? They're Romans 13. Romans 13, the government is designed to protect us from domestic and foreign terror. They are not involved in every aspect of your life. Certainly not your moral standards. That's the Bible's job. Well, if I can't get it from the Bible, I don't get it from Hollywood, and I don't get it from D.C., how about I get some from Islam? So, you know, this is the Quran, and when you are looking at the Quran, the chapters, it says surah. I don't, whatever. Chapter 2, verse number 282. Boy, let's be tolerant towards Islam. Why? Because it's so appealing to women. Call upon, this is making a legal document. The Quran says we're going to make a legal document. Call upon 2 of your men to witness. If 2 men cannot be found, then 1 man and 2 women of your choice will witness. Women forgets, the other may remind her. And this is basically the Quran just saying that women are just these dumb, forgetful things, What are we doing here? You're here to sign a legal document. Oh, yeah. Well, what's that for? Well, this is what we're doing. See, in the Quran and in Islam, 1 man's way of thinking is worth 2 women's way of thinking. So then, can we just take them on? We got 2 hours. This is something that John Shannon told me. He walked into a store, and in a big jar on the shelf, it said used brains. One was $5 on the left, $5, and the other one was $500. And the man said to the clerk behind the counter, he said, hey, why such a big price difference? And the man said, the one on the left is a woman's brain, the one on the right is a man's brain. The man's brain was worth more money. That's the Quran. And y'all talk about we need to be tolerating Islam. They don't accept women. It's oppressive to women. Right? Now let me show you something in the Bible right as we get going off. If you're reading Genesis, which is the first book of your Bible, a lot of people don't know that in today's world. If you get to Genesis 38, verse number 26, you are going to find a principle that will last throughout the rest of the Bible. Look at this. In the Bible, some women outperform the men. In Genesis 38, there's a man named Judah, and he's out shearing his sheep. You can read chapter 38 for yourself. He's out shearing the sheep, and then the next thing you know, he just says, I am going to go find a prostitute. And when he does, this woman has covered herself. She's unrecognizable. But in fact, it's his own daughter-in-law, and her name is Tamar. And he sleeps with her, thinking she's a prostitute. And then she's pregnant. They all find out she's pregnant and she's not married, and their idea is they're going to kill her. But as a means of payment to the prostitute, Judah gave her these identifiable things that were his. And so before they get ready to kill her, she presents them, and now everybody knows Judah is the father. And here's his response. Judah acknowledged them and said, she has been more righteous than I have. Now, someone says it takes two to tango, a man and a woman, and the two of them were together, but at the end of it, he says, she has been more righteous than I am. I think that the Bible does an honest job of showing people's flaws while at the same time saying to us, this is not the best way to be, right? It gives us a realistic picture of how people are. I oftentimes will say it's people just being people. It doesn't mean that we justify it. It doesn't mean that it's good, but it is to be expected. These things are going to happen. That's what Jesus said in Matthew 17. He said, it must needs be that offenses come. And what he was saying was they're bound to, sin is bound to happen. But at this moment, Judah says, I'm at fault. He takes it. It's not on her anymore. You're going to find that over and over in the Bible. And, Luke 23 and 24, women, I think it's about 3 or 4 women, they go to the tomb and they believe that Jesus has raised from the dead. And the people who spent the most time with Jesus don't believe it. So this business from the Quran that 2 women's ideas are worth 1 man's idea, that's not going to be taught in the Bible. So I think that we should, I'm saying to you, be honest with me, be fair with me. If you're taking the Bible away, what are you going to put in its place? Not Hollywood, not D.C., and certainly not the Quran. So let me go through some things with you, y'all. Here's what I'm saying, y'all. Over to the side, we're going to constantly have this reminder. If it's not the Bible, who is it? Is it Hollywood and politicians? Harvey Weinstein, Bill Clinton? Who treats women the best? Okay, let's look at this. I'm saying about people who are going to attack the Bible, I am fine. I don't take issue with people who want to question the veracity of the Bible, the authenticity of the Bible, but man, the critics are just, it's like you're not even trying. You just throw all kinds of stuff out and you say something's bound to stick. So this was written, I don't know who the person is, but at the beginning of the article they call themselves a doctor, which you and I both know can be worthless. So they call themselves a doctor, and this is one of the attacks that they make on the Old Testament. Now look at this. This Dr. Skeptic, says, in the book of Esther, the king apparently decrees a sex contest among young virgin women to see who can best please him. There is a debate on how. He eventually chooses Esther. However, since women are viewed as inherently dirty, Esther must be purified for 12 months before she can be made queen. So Dr. Skeptic comes out and he says, the book of Esther, there's this sexist contest, right? So, number one, I'm going to have to say this is a bit unfair. And here's what I mean by this. Okay, the king is picking a new queen, and he's going about it to say who is the most pleasing. And y'all don't like that. So here's my question back to you. Are you telling me that all of a sudden you don't like beauty contests? Right? It comes on the TV and you say, I do not abide Miss America. I do not abide Miss Universe. Y'all eat that stuff up. I don't watch it. You know what I'm saying? I do not watch that. But I know y'all do. People who are talking about, well, I don't like what the king did in the book of Esther. You have beauty contests, and you do it to your little girls. Like, I'm talking about, there's some perverts out in those audience who like to watch these little beauty pageants. Y'all make them try to look like fully grown women. It's weird. The perverts love it. Then y'all have cheerleading competitions. Man, you talk about objectifying women. Y'all objectify women everywhere. Women who get to do the halftime show come out 70% undressed, and you're going to talk to me about how I treat women. Give me a break. No, so number one, it's a dishonest statement. You have no problem with stuff like this. Not at all. But then number two, it is so uneducated. In the book of Esther, Xerxes is not an Israelite king. Xerxes is a Gentile Persian king who is not given to the same moral standard. Man, it's like you're judging an American president based on what some foreign entity does. You don't have a clue what you're talking. If somebody presented this to me, I'm saying if a skeptic presented this to me, oh boy, I would be so happy. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm trying to do with these classes. I'm trying to make you feel the way I feel when I'm presented with this stuff. I eat this stuff for breakfast. Thank you, man. You just gave it to me on a golden platter. I love this. Well, in Esther, they have a sex contest. Yeah, and he's a Gentile king. This isn't, you're not hitting me with something heavy. It's a non-Jewish king. He's going to learn. I'm saying Jewish principles that they get from the Old Testament, but right now he probably doesn't know them. Do you like that? That's just number one. Here we go. In reality, the Old Testament loves and honors women. You need to have these ideas. Genesis 1:27, do you have your notepad ready? Because this is a section of our class where we're going to go through a list. You need to get your notepad ready. You need to get these things. See how I have that outlined? You need to get these things outlined. You get your notes neat here, and then you get your notes very neat inside your wide margin King James. That way they're all intertwined. Look at this. We're both made in God's image. Wait a second. Okay, let's go back to this. I said Xerxes, however, if you want to say it, Ahasuerus, Persian king. Okay, let's move back to this. Genesis 1:27. God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. We are both made in the image of God. Now, this is where people really, I'm saying, they don't think about this. I've heard people use this passage to defend like nude art and nudist groups. Our body, let's go to John 4. That's not how you're made in the image. John 4:24, God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. The way that we are made in God's image is the fact that we are beings with intelligence and a conscience. We are able to feel shame, regret. We're able to have hope for future events. We have the idea of what's fair and just. It's our thinking mechanism that makes us like God, and we're both that way. Somebody says, well, some of these animals are pretty intelligent. Okay, they don't even have like a concept of time though. You and I can think about 5 years from now. A dog is not going to think 5 years from now. We have so much packed inside of our mental capacities, and that's how we're made in the image of God. And both male and female are made in the image of God. And when you get to Genesis 2:18, we are both made in the image of God. And in Genesis 2:18 it says, the Lord God said, it is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helpmeet for him. Now here's my thing. Some people don't like that. I will say this, helpmeet does not mean servant. And so at the bottom of that, I ask everybody who would not like that, you think it means servant, but I am asking the question, what is wrong with teamwork? The two of you getting together to make it through life. Life is difficult, and life will basically throw all kinds of stuff at you, and you're getting somebody who you are compatible with, who you enjoy being with, and really as far as your life goes, you are building longevity with one another so that you know each other to say, hey, we need to get back on track. Somebody who knows you, who's able to keep you on course that you both want to be on. What's wrong with teamwork? So now can I go to a passage in 1 Timothy chapter 5? Look at this. He says, let's look at verse number 14. So teamwork, okay? I will therefore that the younger women marry, bear children, and guide the house. Give none occasion to the adversary to speak reproachfully. So in your teamwork, Genesis 2:18, it's a helpmeet. You're helping one another. It's not servitude. You're helping each other. 1 Timothy 5:14 is not the idea, guide the house, of the woman doesn't have freedom. You know, Burger King tweeted out the other day, women belong in the kitchen. This is not what this is saying when it says it's not like some punishment, guide the house. This is not a put down to the children, or to the mother and the wife, but it is a blessing to the children. In y'all's teamwork about making it through life, the two of y'all are going to make a baby, and that baby is nobody's responsibility but yours. I am saying it all over the place. I'm going to have an article hopefully coming out in the newspaper. I mean, it's going to be against these abortion arguments, but y'all, I'm saying this. I've been married for almost 6 years now, and I'm saying it's not difficult to not have a baby if you don't want one. And all these people, they say, well, I got kids, and they got all these kids, and it's like, nobody told you to have those kids. And that's not me saying abortion. I'm saying you could put some effort into it and you not have those kids. If you're not ready for kids, don't have kids. And then somebody says, well, Caleb, no one's ever really ready to have kids. You know what I'm talking about. Those kids are your responsibility, man and wife, and y'all are working as a team. They are a team effort, and that's y'all's effort. People out here, they got their own kids, having to worry about your kids on top of their kids, and they're working hard to worry about their kids. 1 Timothy 5:14 is not punishment to the woman, it is a blessing to the child. I grew up where my mom was always in the home, and it was fantastic. Your kids want your affection, your kids want your attention. They do not care about these people at the daycare center. I don't know why you let strangers raise your children. Kids grow up, daycare, like I'm saying, preschool, daycare, preschool, kindergarten, K through 12, they spend the majority of their childhood with people who are not their family members. Why? Well, Mama has to go to work. She doesn't have to go to work. Maybe y'all are just living an unsustainable lifestyle. That's what I'm about, is changing your lifestyle, and I'm about 1 Timothy chapter 6. Look at this. We brought nothing in, this is verse 7, we brought nothing into this world, and it's certain we can carry nothing out, and having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. I'm saying let's be content with what we have, and make sure that our kids get to grow up with the care of their mother rather than strangers. I don't know why anybody would have a problem with that. And then on top of that, there are members of the church who don't like that. That's in the Bible, man. 1 Timothy 5:14, y'all need to be raising your own kids. It's help. It's not servitude. Are you getting these down for your notes? Genesis 2:18 to 1 Timothy 5:14. Now look at this. Genesis 2:24. Look, it's not servitude. And it's not just something like, you know, if you read Alfred Kinsey is always talking about this animalistic, and he calls it sexual release. So now I am going to go to another passage in the New Testament. So I think this, y'all. Let me find it. Wait a second. I think that parents, and people who are not parents, right? You got adults who are giving young adults their opinion, and they're not even their parents. So here's my thing. This stuff about don't get married till you're 30 or 35 is absolute garbage, okay? Look at this. Verse number 9. Somebody says, sex is not a reason to get married. Yes, it is. I'm not saying it's the only reason. I'm not saying it's the main reason. It is a reason. 1 Corinthians 7:9, but if they cannot contain, let them marry, for it is better to marry than to burn. So I had a friend of ours, he's a preacher, and he at the time and another preacher were working together, and they were working with a lot of college students. And he said, do you know what we found? He said a lot of them had the idea of we'll get married when we're 30, and he said, you know what the majority of them were doing? The majority of them were all fornicating. He said they were, young Christian individuals. They had the concept that fornication was sinful, and he said they just were doing it anyways. And I am saying, you're in a time frame where your hormones are raging, and then people are saying, well, wait till you're 30, 35. Nonsense. It's a reason, but here's my thing. The point I was making is marriage is not just about finding this person who's for sexual release. When it says you leave your father and your mother and you cleave to your wife, this is deep emotional connection. When you go through these texts, you find these individuals, and let's go to one in 1 Samuel. Look at this. This is a woman named Hannah, and Hannah cannot get pregnant. And her husband, Elkanah, look at this. Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why weepest thou? Why eatest thou not? And why is thy heart grieved? And he says, am I not better to thee than 10 sons? Well, if he's like this oppressive sexual master, I don't think that he could ask this question. But if we're really looking at it as a team-working relationship where we are both made in the image of God and we are both cleaving to each other and we have deep emotional connection to each other, then yes, I think this person is able to say, at least we have each other. Can we get pregnant? No, we're having a hard time getting pregnant, but at least we have each other. This is all throughout the Bible. Husbands who love their wives, and then there's going to be individuals, there's going to be one man, let's look at it this way. Look at 1 Samuel 25:3. Let's put it over here. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife was Abigail, and she was a woman of good understanding and beautiful countenance, but the man was churlish and evil in his doings. And this idea is just going to be angry for nothing, bitter, always upset about something. But the pretty common theme through the Bible is that husbands, they love their wives. They love their kids. They enjoy one another. And then you find an individual like Nabal, and the Bible goes out of its way to say, he's a pretty nasty dude. See what I'm saying? I'm just trying to make a case for the Old Testament. Someone says, they come to you and they say, well, the Old Testament is a sexist document. We're still just in the book of Genesis. Right? Look at this. You're both made in the image of God. You're on a team. You're working together. You have a deep emotional connection with one another, okay? Look at Proverbs. We're leaving Genesis. Proverbs 18:22. Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtains favor of the Lord. Look, you can, like it says here, a good wife, or finds a wife, finds a good thing. There are some people, you shouldn't marry them. Our teacher said the best time to get a divorce is before you get married, which is not really a divorce, but you get what they're saying. That person, and I would say this too, I agree with a lot of people, they would say don't marry potential. Don't look at somebody and say, well, I can change them and blah, 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 and they've made these promises to me. They say that when we get married, they'll do blah, blah, blah. No, it doesn't work that way. You need to find somebody who's already on the same page. And then someone's going to hear me say that. They're going to say, well, Caleb, I was married before I was a Christian. Well, then I'm not talking to you, am I? I understand. You say if I had known back then, maybe things would be different. I understand that. You're in a different category. You should still be trying to convert your spouse, right? You should be trying to convert them. Proverbs 31:28, her children rise up and call her blessed, her husband also, and he praises her. It's just dishonest to say that the Old Testament doesn't value women and doesn't give honor to women. And then we come back to the slide pictures there. If I'm not learning from the Bible how to treat women, who do I see? Do I get it from Islam? Where am I getting the idea of how to treat women? Genesis 31:50. Now this is actually from someone in the Bible who's not really a good guy. I wouldn't put Laban in the category. As his daughters are leaving, look at what he says to Jacob. If thou shalt afflict my daughters, or if thou shalt take other wives beside my daughters, no man is with us. See, God is witness betwixt me and thee. And what he's really saying, as his daughters leave, with Jacob, his parting words are, treat my daughters well. Well, that's a nice idea, coming from their dad. And so I would say, even in this statement, Laban is still, I don't think, in the good guy category, but, there's a movie line where he says, even bad men love their mamas. Well, here's a bad guy who at least says on their way out, try to treat them well. And he does. I think he does. He has concern for them. I think he tries to treat them well. See, these texts are all over the place. They just don't get any attention. Equal, I'm saying, y'all, appreciation in the home. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. This is Exodus 20, verse number 12. So when somebody says, my response to them is, if they say, well, the Bible is a sexist book and it should not be trusted, I'm giving you the ammunition to discard that idea, but like I said from the beginning, is I would very quickly ask them, okay, if we're taking the Bible away, what's going to take its spot? What is a universal standard on how to educate men and women as far as inhabiting together, right? What's going to become the new authoritative document? So in Exodus 20, verse number 12, he says to the children, you honor your father and your mother. Is the dad going to be the head of the house? Yes, he is. But like we already saw in Genesis chapter 2, they are a team, and they're working together for the best interest of the children. You give honor to both of them. Now, let's move on to a different segment, okay? Those were just some introductory notes for you to get here in the top section. You put those down, men and women. Both made in the image of God. They are on a team. They have deep emotional value to each other. Proverbs 31:28 says that the man gives praise to his wife. And then inside of the law of Moses, and this is the 10 Commandments, you honor your father and your mother. Not just the father, it's both of them. So these are very, very fair statements, okay? But this is where we're going to get into some different things where people who they're just going to cherry pick, like I said about Richard Dawkins, they're going to go through and they're going to cherry pick these Old Testament passages, and they're going to say, yeah, those passages are one thing, but I don't like when the Old Testament says X, Y, Z, and these are some of the things. Someone's going to say, well, I don't like how Sarah had to call Abraham Lord. Genesis 18:12. Therefore Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I am waxed old, shall I have pleasure, my Lord being old also? And she's talking about her husband Abraham. She says, I'm old, and my Lord Abraham is old. So, let's be honest and fair with one another, okay? Somebody says, you give them the passages we just went over, and they say, yeah, that's all well and good, but why did Sarah have to call Abraham my Lord? I'm gonna be honest here, and I'm gonna say, if we had to choose between the two, would you rather have like a respectful term, which I think is a term of endearment? We got folk out here, men, who just call, they're probably not even married, it's just their girlfriend, but I'm saying they just call that girl their B word. That's my B word. And you're having a cow about Genesis 18:12? I don't think so. Man, it's like all the terms that men and women today use for one another, and y'all call that endearing, and then you go over here and say, yeah, well, I don't like how she called him Lord. Do you see what I'm saying? That's like what we said earlier about Esther. The secular world has Miss Universe pageant, Miss America pageant, and then you're going to talk to me about the book of Esther, who is not even a Jewish king underneath the law of Moses. So that's a bit disingenuous. I think anybody talking about Genesis 18:12 in a skeptical way is disingenuous. Man, y'all cuss at each other, you call each other names, and then you want to try to talk to me about these people who had a lifelong lasting marriage, right? A successful marriage, and you want to say this is bad. But even in this, y'all, let's talk about the times and the culture. What transcends time and culture? Being respectful to each other. Let's be respectful to each other. So I will say this. I'll tell you this thing that I don't like. I don't like people inserting themselves into other people's relationships. And this is what I mean by this. So we had a very good friend, and I would be doing stuff like this too. But staying in these people's house, and it's a man and a wife. They're good people, right? They're good Christian folk. I think that. And just, he would laugh. She would know it's a joke. She would know he was doing it for all of us, just showing out. But he would call his wife woman, and he would say, woman, do blah, blah, blah. So it's like, if they're fine with each other, and they love each other, and they both acknowledge this is a joke, and we're all having a good time, then it's nobody's business, right? I seriously doubt that when they're arguing is like when these, hard terms start coming out. I really doubt that. I think that you guys are fine to joke, what have you, but at the end of the day, we both have an understanding that we're going to try very hard to be respectful to each other. It's disingenuous. It's disingenuous for people who cuss at each other and call each other what the world standards would be bad names, and you act like you have a problem with Genesis 18:12. But then here's just a second point about times and culture. So have y'all never read or watched the movie Pride and Prejudice, where the whole time the main female character calls her love interest Mr. Darcy? I don't even know his real name. The whole storyline is Mr. Darcy. And I read biographies from the late 1800s where women were calling their husbands Mr., like if we were in the 1800s, my wife would be calling me Mr. Robertson. It's times and it's culture. But the theme that's there is we try to be respectful to each other, whatever. And somebody says, well, it's respectful when I cuss my wife. Give me a break. Everybody knows you're being dumb. Genesis 18:12, it's disingenuous. If you're going to call women these bad names, don't give me any stuff about it. Genesis 18:12. Now here's another one. Someone says, well, I don't like how the Old Testament treats women like property. Exodus 20 verse number 17, it says, don't covet your neighbor's wife. I say that's good. She is my wife, and you don't have any relation to her. This is my wife. And the Bible says don't even covet, don't desire another man's wife. And someone says, yeah, well, that sounds fine, but I don't like the way that it puts women in the same category. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house, your neighbor's wife, his manservant, maidservant, ox, donkey, anything that's your neighbor. So the wife is just like in the cattle category. Again, let's be honest, let's be fair here. I can sell my cattle. I can't sell my wife. See what I'm saying? Why does it have the wife in this category? What is more dear and precious to a man? Now, some men are not going to value their wives, and some men basically are going to say it is the case. They're going to be married to a woman who's not trying to be a good wife, and he's going to say, I'd get rid of that woman. Hey, I can't do anything about that. And someone may say, well, men do it too. Men do it too. A lot of men get left, a lot of women get left. And it's because we're not working as a team. But look, here's the answer to that. Someone says, well, I don't like how women are put in the cattle category. I can sell my cow. I can't sell my wife. The only thing that it's saying here is she is a precious part of me, and you cannot have her. Isn't that good? I think that's good. I think this is a very easy way to answer it. And somebody would even come back and they would just, say, well, you can just openly dismiss your wife. Again, that's disingenuous. Someone's going to come to the Old Testament, and I think it's incorrect as far as the Old Testament goes, but someone's going to say, well, maybe you can't sell her, but you can dismiss her. This is coming from the people who support no-fault divorce. Y'all are just dismissing one another at the drop of a hat. So it's disingenuous. Don't give me that stuff about, well, she may not be in the cow category where you can sell her, but you just send her away. Man, y'all send each other away. What are you talking about? Exodus 20:17, it just means don't desire someone who's already married. I don't like how women could not own land in the Old Testament, right? We just studied the book of Joshua, and the land goes to all the sons of Israel. Again, uneducated skeptics. What can I do when you guys don't really know the Bible and you're always trying to attack it? You don't do an honest study, and you think you have a silver bullet, and you come at me and you say, well, the Bible is so awful, women couldn't own land. You don't have a clue what you're talking about. Numbers 27, 1 through 8. Okay, this man, the son of Gilead, look at what it says. They stood before, his daughters come to Moses. They stood before Moses and before Eleazar the priest. I'll zoom in a little bit in case y'all need it. before the princes and all the congregation, the door of the tabernacle of the congregation, saying, excuse me, our father died in the wilderness, and he was not in the company of them that gathered themselves together against the Lord in the company of Korah, but died in his own sin, and he had, verse number 3, he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be done away from among his family, because he has no sons? Give unto us therefore possession among the brethren of our father. And Moses brought their cause before the Lord, and the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, the daughters speak correctly. Thou shalt surely give them a possession of an inheritance among their father's brethren. Thou shalt cause the inheritance of the father to pass unto them. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, if a man dies and he has no sons, then shall you cause his inheritance to pass unto his daughters. Somebody says, I don't like the Old Testament because they can't own land. You don't have a clue what the Old Testament says, and this is not, someone says, well, Numbers 27 is an isolated incident. No, it's not. Judges 1:13 through 15. Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother, took a certain hill, and he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. And it came to pass, when she came to him, that she moved to ask of her father a field. She lighted off of her donkey, and Caleb said unto her, what wilt thou? And she said unto him, give me a blessing, for thou hast given me a southland. Give me also springs of water. And Caleb gave her the upper springs and the nether springs. This is a woman requesting of her father a tract of land, and he gives it to her. In the book of Ruth, you have Naomi, the mother-in-law, you have Ruth, the daughter-in-law, and both of their husbands die, and you know what happens at the end of Ruth? They actually are in possessions of portions of land. I can't help it that people attack the Bible and they don't have a clue what they're talking about. And you know, someone says, I don't like the Bible because women can't own land. Number one is wrong. Number two, I ask you, what are we going to put in its place? Because it's like Middle Eastern countries. I don't know if these would be specifically Islamic countries, but you know, they talk about Middle Eastern countries where women can't even drive a car. Can't even drive the car, let alone own it. And you're talking to me about how bad the Bible is. Well, number one, you're wrong. But number two, it's actually doing a lot better than what men have come up with in other cultures. All I'm asking for is some honesty. Right? Just be fair with me. I am willing to hear you out when you basically say, look, I got a problem with this particular Old Testament text. I'm willing to hear you out. I'm willing to have conversation about that. And I think that we can come to a conclusion on the matter. Somebody might say, well, Caleb, you're prejudiced. Any conclusion you're going to come to is going to be basically one that facilitates the Bible. I try very hard not to be that way. You know what? And like I said earlier, the Bible does a good job in that it honestly shows people's flaws. Right? The people who are documenting the Bible, it doesn't give a dishonest view of them that they were just these awesome, righteous individuals all the time. It shows their imperfections. And I'm glad that it does. I'm glad that it shows their imperfections because I am an imperfect individual. And basically, the options are every single person in the Bible is actually going to hell, or the second option is God is gracious to our imperfections. Okay, someone says, I don't like how they can't own land in the Old Testament. I don't like how only men could attend in the worship. And they go to Deuteronomy 16:16. 3 times a year shall all the males appear before the Lord thy God in a place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of the tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. And someone says, well, I don't like how only men can come to the feast days. Again, you're not doing a good job. Deuteronomy 12:11 and 12, man, y'all should be writing this stuff down. Right? You should be having a pen out. You should be getting these notes. Deuteronomy 16 connected back to Deuteronomy 12. Then there shall be a place which the Lord your God shall choose to cause his name to dwell there. Thither shall ye bring at all that I command you, your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, your heave offering of your hand, and all your choice vows which ye vow unto the Lord. You shall rejoice before the Lord your God, ye, your sons, your daughters, your manservants, your maidservants, the Levite that's within your gate, for as much as he hath no part in the inheritance with you. Look, everyone gets to participate. Boys Only Club. You go back to Deuteronomy 5. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thine ox, nor thine ass, nor any of the cattle, nor thy stranger that's within thy gates, that thy manservant and thy maidservant may rest as well as thou. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not a Hebrew. I'm not under this law where it says I have to observe the Sabbath day. But I am saying, wouldn't it be nice if built into your religion is a day where you just rest? Now, here's my thing though. Everybody gets that. It's not like just the men take it easy and the women all have to keep working. It's not like that. Give me 1 second. Okay. You see what I'm saying? They're not doing a good job. I'm fine to hear these people out. I'm fine to hear them with their disputes. I'm fine to field the questions. But at the end of the day, I have to say, like, I have to make it a notable thing. You're not being honest. You're not trying hard. You are just displaying a prejudice that you have. It's like you made up your mind before you came to the Bible that you did not like the Bible, and then you started hunting reasons to not like the Bible. Someone says, well, women can't even come to the worship. Yes, everybody, yeah, I'm ready. Everybody gets to be involved in it. It's not just a men's only club, it's for everybody. Watching with us live, let's take a quick commercial so that we can tell TV viewers about YouTube. I'm saying an in-show commercial, right? Guys in the studio start looking at me. Yeah, they're getting worried. No, we want people to know, if you're local and you're watching Star News, that's fantastic. This is where to find What Does the Bible Say and get your regular Bible study. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. and then Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Tuesdays with my dad, Johnny, and Wednesdays I'm here with you. And so this is what it looks like. You tell your cousin Ted over in Wisconsin that he can go, that if he Googles YouTube Johnny Robertson, this will come up. You'll see that little picture of my dad there. It will be the first Johnny Robertson to come up in YouTube. Purple and white banner, What Does the Bible Say? This is, you see this video right here live, you see that? That's what it's going to look like. And what they get to do is they get to participate live in the Bible study with us, and that's what we're doing this morning. This is a live 2-hour Bible study. So what do we say? If you haven't had coffee yet, get yourself some coffee and get ready for 2 hours of Bible material. Have a notepad down. You are not going to remember everything that's being discussed in this broadcast. And also, I always tell people, you might think that I'm an honest guy. I appreciate that. I try to be. And we are going to have a Bible program up. That's a King James Bible program. People ask about that all the time. I just got an email about it the other night. If you want to get this, it's online. It's called Power Bible, and I think it is the easiest Bible program to use. It will help you out. It has a Hebrew and Greek interlinear that you can search through, and it's all basically backed up by Strong's Concordance and has Strong's numbers attached to it. It does have some built-in commentaries. I don't know which ones, and you can go in and customize it however you'd like in different. Okay, so it's not like this idea that only men can be involved. Like I have to say, they're either not trying very hard, which is bad in its own right, or they are being very dishonest. Now here's the thing, y'all. We come on to 2-state area TV, and then let's do this too. We come on and we go out over the internet, and we go out on YouTube, right? And it's archived on YouTube. So if I don't have my ducks in a row, right, then people are going to basically say two things. They're going to say, this dude is an idiot, or he is extremely dishonest. Now, we are at the top of our hour, and so what we usually do, it's 11 o'clock. What we usually do here is we take a moment to remind everybody. Now, we're still in the middle of our discussion points about that, but let's take a moment here. You're watching on Star News. We appreciate that. We're glad that local individuals are in tune with Bible study. You are interested in spiritual things. But if you're watching on Star News, then what we say to you is, if you think that this broadcast is helping you in your Bible study and you think that it could potentially help other people, then let them know. You can text them that they can look up and watch What Does the Bible Say live while you're watching it. On their phone, on their tablet, laptop, desktop, and on their smart TV. they can watch What Does the Bible Say through YouTube. All they have to do is type in Johnny Robertson. You Google Johnny Robertson YouTube, and this will come up live. And then we do this too outside of our live broadcasting. When is our live broadcasting? Let's go back here. Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Wednesdays at 9 p.m. and then Thursday nights at 8 p.m. That's when we do our live broadcasting. It will be right here. See how it says live? What does the Bible say? Live in red right there. What you can do is, let's see if it'll come up. Excuse me. Boy, coughing, rubbing my eyes. I got all kinds of problems. You go over here, you press that. Let's zoom in on it. Subscribe. Subscribe. This is not a subscription fee, right? That's what some people might think it is. That's not what that means. You hit subscribe, then you hit the bell, and what that does is it lets you know every time that we go live. Sunday night at 9, Tuesday at 1 p.m., Wednesdays at 10 a.m., Wednesdays at 9 p.m., and then Thursday nights at 8. And when you do this, you have access to all these videos, right? We've got over 1,000 videos of Bible study. Does Acts chapter 3:19 contradict Acts 2:38? And what does the Greek word ace mean? You go to the playlists. Entire books of the Bible to study, Book of Joshua, Book of Exodus, Life of Christ, Genesis, Luke, playlist on divorce, tent meeting sermons, lessons against Calvinism, and then at least 19 different debate videos. So we're doing all this because we want people to be educated in the Bible. We want you to be encouraged. And the other thing that we do is every Sunday morning we send out a page-and-a-half Bible article. We call it The Informer. Unprepared for Romans, that's the series we're doing. You email me at calebgrobertson@gmail.com, and I will put you on the Informer list. You'll get this in your email every Sunday morning, and it's all extra means of trying to encourage you. And then, of course, we would say, visit with us in person. There's a lot of people who are worried about going out. I have to say, you're not worried about going out. You go everywhere that you want to. You go to the bank, you go to Walmart, you go to the pharmacy, you go to the gas station, you go out to eat. But then you say, oh, I can't go to Bible study. So, we have never shut down. The building has stayed open, 823 Starling Avenue in Martinsville. It's a big enough auditorium that if you don't want to sit next to anybody, you don't have to. If you want to wear a mask, you can wear a mask. If you don't want to shake anybody's hands, just let us know. Hey, I'm not into shaking hands right now. That's fine, but we're glad that you came out to visit. Have a lot of people who in town do watch What Does the Bible Say. They don't go to a man-made sect anymore, but they just keep watching What Does the Bible Say. You need to attend in person, right? You need to have fellowship. You need to come in the book of Ephesians chapter 3, about verses 12 through 16. You need to have mutual edification. We appreciate people who do tune in to What Does the Bible Say, but don't just watch What Does the Bible Say and then not go to the assembly to worship. And when I say that, that doesn't mean go to a man-made sect. I'm really inviting you to come to 823 Starling Avenue or come to 120 American Legion Boulevard in Danville. Now, you with me on this? We're still on this. We're going to switch gears in just a moment. But I'm saying for your notes, y'all, you have plenty of passages in your Old Testament that value women, that praise women. And then right now what we're doing is we're dealing with these sections of scriptures where someone says, well, I don't like how they couldn't do X, Y, Z. Well, so far what we're finding is this is not realistic at all. Someone says, I didn't like how women are viewed as property. I don't like how Sarah had to call Abraham my Lord. I would say that that was just her trying to be respectful, and the terminology was just given for the time and the culture. It very well is the case, y'all, that we're going to get years away from where we are now. Being honest with you, people are going to read our material and they're not going to figure out. They're going to be saying, like, why did these men call these women boo? Why did these, see what I'm saying? Honey, dear, all these different things. Dear, I don't know. I don't know how verbiage is going to change over the period of time, but the consistent theme is caring, respectful, right? That's what we're shooting for here. Someone says, I don't like how they could only men could attend the feast days. That's an incorrect statement. Women, the children, they could all come to the feast days. Then we talked about the Sabbath day. Now let's look at this. I have to say, y'all, you're not, like I said a moment ago, disingenuous. I don't like, this is what a skeptic says, I don't like how a woman's vow could be undone in the Old Testament, and they're quoting Numbers 30, verses 3 through 4. You and I have used this in some past Bible studies. If a woman vows a vow unto the Lord and bind herself by a bond, being in her father's house in her youth, and her father hear her vow and her bond wherewith she has bound her soul, and her father shall hold his peace at her, then all her vow shall stand, and every bond wherewith she has bound her soul shall stand. He has the option to basically say, no, that vow's not gonna stand. So here's my thing. Someone says, they look at this and say, I don't like that. I don't like how a woman's vow could just be undone. Well, you notice it says she's still in her father's house in her youth. Your daughter can't go on a field trip without a permission slip. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, I'm fine. They might be taking your kid somewhere they ain't got no business going, and you say, I'm not for that. You all recognize this. When your kids are in your house, they have to follow certain rules. Now, if your young daughter is in your house and she goes out and she basically signs up for something, and she comes home and says, well, Daddy, I made a vow. And you say, well, sweetie, that just ain't gonna work. Y'all don't have a problem with that. Y'all do it all the time. Now, I will say this, y'all. Some of y'all do it to a degree where you don't ever let your kids grow up. And that's bad. At some point, they have to start having the freedom to make their own decisions. We had a teacher, he did it, and I thought it was a good call. In his case, it worked out. He had 2 daughters, and as they were growing up, he said, I'm trying my best to teach y'all. And he said, at some point, as I try to do my best to teach y'all, he said, at some point, I have to learn to trust you also. And so what he said to them was, he said, if you decide at a young age you want to get married, he said, I will not fight you. And he said, but I have to educate you that this is a serious decision. This is what you should look for. And once you're in it, it's lifelong. And so I don't know if both of them got married, and he actually married his wife. She was under age 18. He got married very young. Family members got married young, and they had lifelong lasting marriages. So, and that's what I'm saying. It's like y'all put into the young people's mind, don't get married till you're 30. That's ridiculous. You saw the passage in 1 Corinthians 7. Your hormones, you're burning with lust. I don't know why you do it to yourselves. It's not the only reason, but let's not act like it's not a reason. But here's the thing, like the man said, you educate your children, and at some point you have to then start trusting them that they have the education, because you can't make them. I'm saying they reach a point where, what you going to do, spank them? They're too big to get spanked now. You're not going to be able to do that. Maybe at some point you need to have some pretty solid, like, this is it, man. Either you're doing it or you're finding a new place to live. I don't disagree with that. And I think it goes both ways. I think that parents can oftentimes, they don't educate their kids more times than not. But the kids have been educated, now they're coming to adulthood, and the parents don't trust them. But on the flip side of that, there are a lot of young people who abuse their parents. They don't keep the rules. They're always moving the line. You give them an inch, they take a mile. That's bad. I mean, it's got to have a mutual, respectful relationship. But I'm saying everybody gets this. She's still in her father's house in her youth, then the vow can or cannot stand. And then it goes for the same thing in a marriage relationship. If you are trusting yourself to a man to take care of you and the entire family, then yes, you have put that trust in him that he's going to care for all of us. So that means you don't just get to unilaterally go out and make decisions that actually make it harder on him to take care of you and the kids. I think we would all say, yeah, that's reasonable. If we're working together as a team, she goes out and she just does X, Y, Z, the husband has the right to say, we're not doing that. I think that that's fair. I don't like how women were given as gifts. That's what somebody's going to say, and they're going to go to Genesis 29, 22, and 29. Now, 2 things for this passage. Number 1, you say, I don't like how women were given from extra study, extra information, when we go to Exodus 21, verse number 2 and 11, these people are not promoting slavery as we know it in American history. Look at this. No man, no woman, Hebrew man or woman, could serve more than 6 years. So, there are a lot of people that when their family may be well-to-do, and maybe more so than you, and you say, well, I don't know if my family could do that. There are plenty of women who, when they have their baby, they get a nanny. What's wrong with that? I know you don't have a problem with that. Are you seriously going to look out over all of America, and anybody who basically has the means to do it, they hire someone to help them around the home? Someone says, well, Caleb, a minute ago you said you ought to raise your kids and not these people. Well, I'm not saying that they abandon it all to the nanny, but I'm saying if they have the means to do it, that's their call. So here's my thing, what you will find about this. I'm not going to try to hide any information from you. Somebody's going to say, well, this is not exactly what's going on. I think that's how it started out. Someone's going to say, well, yeah, down here, Jacob marries Laban's daughter, Rachel. And it says in verse 29, Laban gave Rachel Bilhah to be handmaid. So this is a helper. And what somebody's going to say is, yeah, but then Jacob turns around and actually starts having children with Bilhah. Okay. So what you're going to find is, in this portion of man's history, let's look at this, y'all. They're still being educated, and this is what I mean. Galatians 3:19. Wherefore then serves the law? It was added because of transgressions. So yes, in the book of Genesis, you're going to find where people would do certain things, they would make certain actions, and then as you keep reading in the text, God is going to give them extra information, and He's going to tell them, this is what y'all used to do, and that wasn't good, this is what you need to start doing. So when you get to, I believe it's Deuteronomy 15, do you remember with Abraham? Abraham had Ishmael, and then he had Isaac. Ishmael is the firstborn, and Isaac gets all the blessings. And Ishmael is sent away. So later on, Abraham does that. But then later on, they're going to get a stipulation, they're going to get further information added, where God is going to say, you cannot give the blessing to the favored child. It's the firstborn gets it. It doesn't matter if your third child is your favorite, what have you, the firstborn gets the blessing, and we have to stick to that rule. So when you see Jacob marries Rachel, and then he's also going to take Bilhah, and she's going to start bearing him children, God is actually going to give information on that later on, and He's going to say, this was not conducive. So for your notes, if you want to see the passage, look at this. Leviticus 18:18. Neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister, to vex her, to uncover her nakedness besides the other in her lifetime. So you're going to find this statement, and I think they had information as to, now here's another thing, someone's going to say, well, if your brother died and he was married and they didn't have kids, weren't you supposed to take his wife to be your wife? So do y'all remember Dad was doing a class and he says X equals Y? But when you're dealing with case laws, sometimes X equals Z. But that's only in certain cases. In Leviticus 18, I think this is a general statement where he's telling them to avoid polygamy. So this word here, let's look at it. And I've said this before, I said it the other night. I'm not a Hebrew student, and you're not either. But I'm saying, let's look at this word here. When it says, thou shalt not take a wife to her sister to vex her, polygamy never worked in the Old Testament. I'm saying Rachel and Leah, they were wives to one man. They always fought. When it was the case that Abraham did marry Hagar and produced Ishmael, they fought. It does not work. Now let's look at this. When you look at 1 Samuel 1:6, you have Elkanah has a wife named Hannah, but then he also has a wife named Peninnah, and look at this in verse number 6. Hannah He gave a worthy portion, for he loved Hannah, but the Lord had shut up her womb. And look at this. And her adversary also provoked her sore, for to make her fret, because the Lord had shut up her womb. So look at this. He has taken these two women to be his wives, and look at what it is. They are adversarial to one another. Look at what Leviticus 18:18 says not to do. Neither shalt thou take a wife to her sister to vex her. I think this is him saying, this is the Lord saying, not to do this, not to have polygamy, because they're going to vex one another. Now here's another passage. Outright, Deuteronomy 17:17, talking about the king, neither shall he multiply wives to himself. So here's what I'm saying. Would they continue on and would they get further information? Yes, they would get further information. But even before they get their additional information, it's not always nearly as bad as what you're making it out to be. You say, well, I just don't like how the women were given as gifts. I think if your parents basically hired a nanny for you, I think you would be all for that. You say, man, I just had this baby. I'm not getting any sleep. I'm not getting any blah, blah, blah. And then you say, and my parents hired a nanny. You'd love that, but you won't let them do it in the Old Testament. And then I said, I'm being honest with you. There's going to be some portions in here that are not good, but later on as you continue in the book, God is going to give them more information. That's Galatians 3:19. The law was added, and I'm saying the law is being added to protect us. You don't like how women were given as gifts. Well, even as far as servitude goes, a Hebrew woman, a Hebrew man, they could only serve 6 years, and on the 7th they had to go free. They had the option to stay on. If they really loved the family they were working with, they had the option to voluntarily stay on. It's not that. Here's another one. So, I can't really think of anything at the moment. I know, y'all, this is a 2-hour class, and I know this is a lot of information, but I really encourage you to write this down, because these are the things that people are going to bring up to you. These are the portions of Scripture that atheists, agnostics, and skeptics are going to talk about, and the only reason that you and I are talking about that now is because somebody does have to try to reach them. If not for their own sake, we have to do a good job answering the skeptics and the agnostics, because they are out here promoting an attack on the Bible to the upcoming generation. So we have to do a good job. Now in Numbers chapter 5, what you have is a husband is suspicious that his wife has slept with another man. Well, they had a process to figure that out. It's Numbers 5:11 through 22. And so here's what somebody's going to say. They're going to say, I don't like how only the man could be suspicious. And we're not going to necessarily read all this right now. You can read on your own time. But here's the general idea. A man is suspicious. He brings the accusation to the priest, and what they do is, this is the way that they went about it, he would take this water, put it in a cup, he would take dust off the tabernacle floor, he would mix this drink, and they would give it to her to drink. If she was innocent, nothing would happen. If she was guilty, it said that her belly would swell, her thigh would begin to rot, and I believe at the end of it she would die. Now, somebody's going to have a problem with this. Number one, I will tell you, I don't think that this was limited to men only. In the context, beginning of Numbers chapter 5, these are discussions given to all of Israel. As you continue into Numbers chapter 6, the discussion is still re-emphasized, all of Israel. Look, could I be wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. But I don't think this was limited to just the men to be suspicious. But now let's look at this, y'all. The way you look at things, and you look at Numbers 5, and you say, I think this is a bit unfair, and I don't really like this. But I have to ask you, really, what's wrong with it? They make this drink, they give it to the woman, and if she's innocent, nothing's going to happen. And if she's guilty, well then honestly she's guilty, right? Y'all, I understand, like people are going to say back to me, they're going to say, Caleb, well you yourself say people being people. I get that, people being people, but even as we say it's people being people and people are imperfect, I think there are some things that we should really shoot for as to avoid those things. Someone says, Caleb, you say people being people. Yeah, but that is absolutely no justification for pedophilia. Someone's just people being people. Yeah, I don't find where like majority of the population is struggling with that. You know what I'm saying? And also the same thing for a lot of people they lean towards homosexuality simply based on circumstances. There are a lot of people inside the homosexual community that they will tell you honestly that they were violated as a child and that confused them sexually. I don't disagree with that. I cannot imagine not being able to understand and process those events from a child. And they said, yeah, that messed me up sexually. And then they basically say this, a lot of people, I don't know how many, but I'm saying I know that it constitutes a part of the society. They go to prison, they're not a homosexual, they come out of prison being a homosexual. You read books by Judith Reisman. She's got a book called Sexual Sabotage. There are a lot of people, and I'm saying like you should not be looking at pornography, but then some people, they say we were looking at so much pornography that we became accustomed to seeing and enjoying naked men. And they say we got confused. She has whole segments in her book about how that is harmful to people, how it's confusing to people. So that's what I'm saying. Here's my point. When you say people being people, but yeah, some of these things are simply extremes and they are fringe cases. That's not just people being people. Like someone goes into a court hearing, they're on trial for molesting a child and they appeal to the judge and they say, well, Your Honor, people being people. No. So when you look at this, we need to have a heavier view of individuals who dishonor the marriage covenant. I said all that to say that point. We need to have a more severe view of those who dishonor the marriage covenant. And what I mean by that is you basically go through the moment of adultery has been found out, divorce is on the horizon, and that could just mess up an entire person's work environment. Their financial situation is just going down the drain. It's going to hurt the kids. It's going to hurt the in-laws. It's not a good thing, right? And I'm saying, y'all, we need to be promoting the idea of let's fix our problem. People say irreconcilable differences. Number one, I would say we should have been talking about them differences before y'all got married. And then number two, once you're in the marriage and someone says irreconcilable differences, what is it? What is it that y'all just can't get over? Somebody needs to be talking to these people that way. What is it that y'all think y'all can't fix? And it has to come into play where somebody, you're married, and I'm saying this, y'all, perhaps it's the case, and it is perhaps, there are some people you don't want to hear from, and I get that. But you do need to have somebody that you can invite into the conversation, and let me say this to y'all now. Let's go to 1 Timothy chapter 3. This is where elders come in. Elders who come in, and look at this. One who rules well his own house, having his children in subjection with all gravity. And where else did it say in verse number 2? Husband of one wife. This is somebody who has lived and they have had a successful, lasting marriage, and they have then raised their kids. You need to invite that type of person who can come in and they can give you, I'm saying, objective, non-biased information and say, this is the solution. So, and then there's a book you can get at Goodwill, and I've always seen that as a hardback, so it should be about $2. It's called Question Behind the Question. A lot of times people are fighting and they're upset about something, and it's only a symptom of something else. So what you need to do is you and your spouse are fighting, you need to get someone that y'all both trust, that you both have confidence in, who can be honest and come in and see things like that and say, well, y'all are fighting about a symptom, but here is the actual problem. And this is how you're going to fix the problem. And you're going to have to be willing to actually do that thing. You're going to have to say, yeah, if it means saving the marriage means cutting this off, then yeah, we'll do it. You got to do it. In Numbers 5, I think plenty of innocent women, and let's make this point here, plenty of innocent women would have been taken to this trial, and the drink would have been made, and they would say, give me that drink. And they would have taken it, and knowing that they're innocent, it's not a big deal. Give it to me. Hurry up. Give it to me. What this did in Numbers 5 was this protected women from men who would just carelessly try to dismiss their wives. Ted comes in, right? Ted the Jew comes in and he says, Rabbi, I don't want to have this woman as my wife anymore. Well, we have stipulations in place. You can't just come in and say, I don't want her to be my wife. And then he starts saying, well, she cheated on me, but I can't prove it. And then you know what they do? They make the drink. The woman drinks it. She's proven to be innocent, and that shut Ted up. See, it's protecting the woman to where she's going to be. There's a lot of people, y'all. There are a lot of people who have been accused of unfaithfulness, and they never cheated. There's a lot of people who have had their name run all through the mud and never did what they were accused of. And you may not like Numbers 5, but that's what it's trying to prevent. A dishonest moment of shame against the woman is trying to protect the woman. Now, what's wrong with that? If you were an individual who was going through something like this, you would say, it sounds good to me. It protects me from these lies and protects my character, right? You've been through character assassination. You would say, I wish I could have had a Numbers 5 situation. Now, let's leave Numbers 5 and more. Let's talk about Deuteronomy chapter 24. Deuteronomy 24, I will say, can be a difficult passage. And I will say this too. It's about accumulating the information. That's one of our biggest problems, is people like to go to one verse and they say, aha. And then they stop. That's bad Bible study. So in one sense, I really don't think that Deuteronomy 24 is all that difficult if we're going to take all the information together, and this is the second part of it. I think that a lot of times it only is made difficult because people are being dishonest, and this is what I mean. They start trying to find passages to justify the sin that they have now found themselves living in. So let me do this real quick with you. Let's go to the playlist section. In here, look, you see that? Divorce. There's 5 videos in the divorce playlist. In one of those videos is where I will talk about Deuteronomy 24. I would encourage you to watch that. You will find overlapping information from there to this class now, but there are 5 videos given specifically to the topic of divorce. And here's what I'm saying. Some people, they're starting to get an idea. They do their Bible study, and they kind of start getting an idea that they're in a bad marriage. They're in an adulterous marriage. I had a Bible study with a man locally, and he told me, we got done with the study, and when we got done, he said, Caleb, he said, that is not the answer that I wanted to hear. He said, but it is the answer I expected to hear. And he knows that he is not in a scriptural marriage. He knows that he is currently living in adultery. Now, he's an honest individual. He made no bones about it. He didn't like it, but he hasn't fixed it yet either. Well, there are a lot of people that when they hear that news, they start hunting to find a way to undo Matthew 19:9. And I will say that you and I are going to talk about Deuteronomy 24, but at the end of the day, you and I are being governed by Matthew 19:9 and subsequent passages. Deuteronomy 24 is not binding today. But I do think while they had Deuteronomy 24, it was a means to protect women. I think it was a good piece of legislation. I think that it was designed to protect women. But I do want to say that as you and I do our study, you and I are being governed by Matthew 19:9. So let's look at this, y'all. So I'm building off of the discussion that I know that my dad had with y'all in his Exodus class, where he talked about some laws where you say X equals Y. But sometimes X equals Z. And look at this. A lot of times this is Y. You will find portions in your Bible, just like Abraham sends Ishmael away and he blesses the second born. That was not an ideal situation. And so later on they get further information. Right? You're going to have a lot of these things where it says, if this happens, this is the second step. Well, In reality, you would like to avoid point number one, but if point number one happens, this is what you do afterwards. Now look at this. In the Old Testament, God would give secondary regulations for in the case of that the first regulation was not followed out. Now here is an example of how this works. Look, right? You know that these type of principles are all over the world that we live in. Now look at this. In Leviticus 21:7, this is a secondary regulation. Priests cannot marry, as the text would say, a whore. Leviticus 21:7. Priests cannot marry a whore. Well, that's a secondary regulation from Deuteronomy 23:18 that just says no whores are supposed to be alive in Israel. In the book of Leviticus, it would tell fathers, y'all, this is let me find this. I don't know if I will be able to find it. Okay, Leviticus 19:29 is the first one. Leviticus 19:29. So some people are naive, and you know, they just have to be educated. Look at this. Leviticus 21:7 is a secondary regulation. Priests cannot marry a whore. In Deuteronomy 23:18 it says no whores were supposed to be left alive in all of Israel. So here's another piece of legislation in Leviticus 19:29. Do not prostitute thy daughter, to cause her to be a whore, lest the land fall to whoredom and the land become full of wickedness. Here's where I say people are being naive. There are a lot of wicked people out there, and they will prostitute their children. There are a lot of people out there who are wicked individuals that they themselves will take advantage sexually of their own children or their stepchildren, and at the same time they will then offer those kids up to clients, friends, neighbors, and they will do it for some type of form of advancement. And people out there saying, oh, no, they wouldn't do that. Yes, people will do that, and you need to be aware of this. And I'm saying people need to know where their kids are. People need to know who their kids are going to be around. And this is part of it, y'all. You say, well, I don't like the Old Testament. You're talking about the Old Testament where it tells parents not to take advantage of their kids? Back on this. Deuteronomy 24 is a secondary regulation. Here's your first regulation, or here's your secondary. Don't marry whores. First regulation, do not allow whores to live in the land of Israel. So now, let's think about Deuteronomy 24, y'all. Jesus tells us that Deuteronomy 24 is a secondary regulation. In Matthew 19, verses 3 through 9, I want to pause here and I want to make a point. As you and I go through this and we're trying to get an understanding, I want to tell you what the end goal is before we even get going. The end goal of why I'm bringing up Deuteronomy 24 in today's class is to let you know that Deuteronomy 24 was a law of God, a secondary regulation designed to protect women. Okay, now let's do this. The Pharisees came unto him, tempting him, saying unto him, Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? He answered and said unto them, Have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man put asunder. The Pharisees say back to him, Why did Moses command to give a writing of divorcement and to put her away? He said unto them, Moses, because the hardness of your hearts suffered you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. Where did they get this idea of writing a divorcement? They got it from Deuteronomy 24. What did Jesus say about Deuteronomy 24? Jesus said in verse number 8 that Deuteronomy 24 was not the original idea of marriage. It is not the ideal situation for marriage. What is? The Genesis account where you have one man, one woman, monogamous, and they have a lifelong marriage. There was not any, I'm saying in the Genesis account, there is no divorce regulation. And when you look at this text also, look at what the idea is. when a man is going to take a wife, what is the home life that she's coming from? She has a mother and a father. And the same thing for the man. It says, where is it? This cause shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave to his wife. God, from the beginning, intended for it to be one man, one woman for life. Now, let's talk about secondary regulations. That is what He intended it to be, and for the time, He says, because the hardness of your hearts, He suffered you to put away your wives. That's like a lot of people look at the Old Testament and they will say, back in the Old Testament, God commanded polygamy. No, He did not. You're confusing the idea of God suffered polygamy, but we can find multiple passages where He was telling them it's not a good idea. He was giving them, I think Leviticus 18:18 is one of them, Deuteronomy 17:17 is one of them. It did not work out, and I think He was trying to point them away from that. But look at what He says. Because the hardness of the people's hearts, He suffered them to put their wives away. Now let's look at this, y'all. God never intended for men and women to be divorcing for no reason. However, Him seeing the hardness of their heart, He made a secondary regulation that would in fact protect these women. Now let's look at this. In Deuteronomy 24:1-4, this is how it would work. This is the secondary regulation. When a man has taken a wife and married her, and it come to pass that she find no favor in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanness in her. Now, I want to stop here. Deuteronomy 24 does not give them a reason for no-fault divorce. When it says he finds no uncleanness in her, that's the Hebrew word erva. And every time that erva is put in the connection of a man and a woman, it is sexual activity. It will oftentimes be called uncleanness or possibly nakedness, but it is sexual activity. It says, she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some uncleanness in her. Then let him write her a bill of divorcement, and give it in her hand, and send her out of his house. And when she is departed out of his house, she may go and be another man's wife. And if the latter husband hate her, and write her a bill of divorcement, and give it to her in her hand, and sendeth her out of the house, or if the latter husband die, which took her to be the wife, her former husband, which sent her away, may not take her again to be his wife, after she is defiled. For that is an abomination before the Lord, and thou shalt not cause the land to sin, which the Lord thy God giveth thee for an inheritance. Now here's my thing, y'all. He's still telling them, you don't just get to do no-fault divorce. It has to be uncleanness. Now here's my question. I'm saying this is a secondary law, but I would say even beyond that. And this is designed so that women are basically being shown that they were with a man who was, like it says in Matthew 19:8, hard-hearted individual. And here's why I say this is secondary law. In Deuteronomy 22, if you're really finding uncleanness in her, then really it's not about her getting a paper of divorcement and then going out to a new man. And here's what I mean. They shall bring out the damsel to the door of her father's house, and the men of her city shall stone her with stones that she die, because she has wrought folly in Israel to play the whore in her father's house. So shalt thou put evil away from among you. That, in verse number 21, is for a man who marries a woman and she was not a virgin. They would be able to tell. The father would produce, they would say, bring forth the tokens of her virginity. The father would then bring forth the bed sheets. There would either would or would not be blood on the bed sheets. He would present those things. Now here's my point. A man who marries a woman who cannot present tokens of her virginity, it says, you will take her out and stone her with stones that she die. If a man be found lying with a woman married to a husband, then they shall both of them die, but the man that lay with the woman and the woman, so shalt thou put away evil from Israel. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto a husband, and a man find her in the city and lie with her, then ye shall bring them both out of the city gate, and ye shall stone them with stones that they die. The damsel because she cried not, being in the city, and the man because he hath humbled his neighbor's wife, so shall be put away from the evil among you. So this is a woman who is engaged, and if you basically compare the Deuteronomy account with the Exodus account, she is enticed, and this isn't rape. she's enticed, and she sleeps with someone who is not her betrothed. Then verse number 25, but if a man find a betrothed damsel in the field, and the man force her and lay with her, then the man only that lay with her shall die, but unto the damsel thou shalt do nothing. There is in the damsel no sin worthy of death, for as when a man riseth against his neighbor and slayeth him, even so this matter. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed damsel cried out, but there was none to save her. And honestly, I do want to show this to you. Look at this. In Exodus 21, verse number 7, it says, a man rapes a woman in the field, but she cries out and there's no one to hear her because they're way out in the middle of a field. In Exodus 21, verse number 7, it says, if a man sells his daughter to be a maidservant, and you know that she can only do this for 6 years, this is not slavery, on the 7th year she's going to go free. If a man shall sell his daughter to be a maidservant, she shall not go out as the men servants do. Do you know that God was actually putting all kinds of stipulations in place? Don't let this woman go out and be alone with the men. This is all over the place, God trying to protect these women from what these hard-hearted people, hard-hearted men would do to her. Now somebody's going to say, these people had the law. They shouldn't have been so hard-hearted. Y'all, the law says be good to your neighbor. Yes, the intention is there in the law. These people were just breaking it, but that's not God's fault and that's not the law's fault. It's people who just disregard the law and they don't actually have care for their neighbor, but all the while God is trying to protect these women. Don't send the women out by themselves with the men. Don't work them like men work. And this is a result, this is a byproduct of it. But do you see how I'm saying this? Deuteronomy 24 has to be a secondary law, a secondary regulation for people who are not actually following these commands. A woman who gets the writing of divorcement and sent out from her husband, and he says, I have found some uncleanness in this woman. If that's really the case, why did they not stone her? Right? Because you're having it here, someone says, we have to stone a man and a woman. Well, if she's an individual who can't produce tokens of her virginity, then she's able to be stoned by herself. So why, and then someone says, well, okay, there was uncleanness, but he couldn't prove it. Then why didn't he appeal to Numbers 5 that she drink the drink, and if she's guilty, her belly will swell and her thyroid and she'll die? Why didn't he just appeal to that? You have these people who are looking to basically circumvent God's law, and Deuteronomy 24 is put there in place to protect them. Does that make sense? Let's go back to YouTube. Let's look at this. Maybe I did a better job on the YouTube channel, on the divorce playlist where I represented them. Maybe I did a better job explaining it over there, but do you see how in Deuteronomy 22, these are what you do for sexual uncleanness, and it involves taking life, it involves stoning. So when you get to chapter 24 of Deuteronomy, how is it the case that we even have an opportunity to give her a writing of divorcement? It's because these are people who are in fact being dishonest with the law. They had Deuteronomy 22, they had Numbers chapter 5, and somehow we're coming to this point where we're saying, well, I find her to be unclean, and I'm giving her a bill of divorcement. This woman could then go out with her bill of divorcement, and she could be recognized to be put away by someone who was a dishonest individual. It is a protective document for her. Now, someone's going to say, why can't we have this today? Let's go back to Matthew 19:8. Someone says, why can't we have this today? Jesus said it was obviously not the ideal, right? God suffered it because of the hardness of the people's heart, but from the beginning it was not so. So Jesus said from his own mouth, it wasn't the ideal. It was a secondary regulation because the people were not following the first regulations. And he appeals to the beginning. So if you look at Ecclesiastes 8:11, he suffered it. And I think a lot of the ideas of where it says God suffered these things to be so was we have to keep, like Exodus 32. Exodus 32, they make the golden calf. God says, I'll just wipe all of them out and I'll start over with a whole new nation. God is using these people, Romans 9, as a means to accomplish something. He's using the Jewish nation to bring forth the Messiah to save all of us from our sins. So in that way, He put up with some of the things that they did. But in the idea of Ecclesiastes 8:11, it's not the ideal situation, and Jesus said that. He said from the beginning it was not so. Because sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the heart of men, sons of men, is fully set in them to do evil. God himself recognizes this is not the ideal situation, so what he does is he gives corrective information again, and he draws us back to the ideal. At this times of ignorance God winked at, but now commands all men everywhere to repent. When you look at Matthew 19:9, someone says, well, it seems so severe. Well, if we're being honest, it's not as severe as Deuteronomy 22, because you can be today a put-away fornicator and we're not going to stone you. You can be a put-away fornicator, repent, and live the rest of your life, and you can be a Christian, you can be forgiven, you can go to heaven. But the end reasoning for it is because Matthew 19:9, when he appeals back to the beginning, and now he's saying, whosoever shall put away his wife except it be for fornication and shall marry another commits adultery. Whoso marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. The severe consequences are there because he does want the marriages to last. People who get divorces, I'm saying statistically speaking, the people who get divorces, more times than not, they then enter second, third, and fourth marriages. They already have it in their mind, if it's not going the way I want it to, I'll just get out of it. They obviously don't have respect for the sanctity of marriage if they're divorcing for no reason. So that's not the answer. And then someone says, well, maybe I'll remarry and I won't get married after that. I mean, I'll really make that one work. Okay, we're still not thinking about the kids who are involved in that situation. This is the best circumstance. Get married, stay married. There's only one reason to actually get a divorce and create a subsequent marriage. Anything beyond that, we should be able and be willing to fix it. So, I'm going to skip this part because I only have 5 minutes left and I want to close out. I will recommend this. These are some books to go along with our discussion, Deuteronomy 24. Baal's Position Explained and Denied by Jerry Moffatt. And I Say Unto You by a man named James O. Baird. And then there's a debate book. I don't know how easily this is found these days. I have a copy. But it's a debate on divorce and remarriage, and it's performed by Olin Hicks and Mac Deaver. I don't recommend Mac Deaver on any of his information on the Holy Spirit. And I will tell you up front, Olin Hicks is the false teacher in this debate. But I do think it's worth at least reading. Now, I want to finish with this note, and I've only got just a couple minutes, but I want to finish here. Going back to our wildly uneducated critics. This is from the same man, Dr. Skeptic. Heaven, he says, according to the Bible, heaven is to be inhabited by 144,000 virgin men who have not been defiled by women. He cites Revelation 14:1-4. One wonders how this squares with God's command to be fruitful and to multiply in the book of Genesis. There's so many things wrong with this. Number one, Revelation is a book of symbols. When you get to Revelation 7, verse number 9, he leaves the 144,000, which is just a symbol. And then he says, I saw a great multitude that was not able to be numbered. And it represents God's people. So is it only 144,000, or is it a great multitude that cannot even be numbered? See, I've got him on that. But then number two, be fruitful and multiply. That is not a universal command. And you know what? If it is a universal command that applies to everybody throughout time, then Paul died lost, because Paul was an unmarried man. He wasn't. And he said, I would wish that some people would stay unmarried like I am. Well, don't you know you're violating be fruitful and multiply? Here's my thing, y'all, as we close out. I would hope that the information we looked at in the Old Testament has been beneficial. The Old Testament values and honors and appreciates women. They have their just huge place in this world. And then I said the question, if we're not going to learn from the Bible how to treat women, where do we get our information? Hollywood, politics, Islam? No, those aren't doing any good. You have to have something as a universal standard that can communicate and translate through cultures and times and what have you. But I do want to say this at the end. Let's be fair. Let's be honest. Someone says, well, it's a deal breaker that women can't preach. So do you know in the Old Testament there were 12 tribes and only one out of the 12 tribes got to do the office of the priest work? And basically the high priest, you would be translating the idea of 1 in a million. That was the entirety of their system. Just because women can't preach on Sunday doesn't mean they don't have the opportunity to tell people in life about Jesus and the gospel, there's so much more teaching that gets accomplished rather than Sunday morning at 11 o'clock from the pulpit. Teach your kids, teach your grandkids, teach your neighbors. There's all manner of opportunities for teaching to be accomplished. But I would say this, y'all. The greatest blessing that there is in life, men and women get to both experience it and enjoy it collectively. And that is being saved. Galatians 3:26 and 29, Romans 3:23 would say all have sinned and come short of the glory of God. And in Galatians 3:26 and 29 it says, "For ye are all the children of God by faith in Christ Jesus, for as many of you as been baptized into Christ have put on Christ. There's neither Jew nor Greek, there's neither bond nor free, there's neither male nor female, for you're all one in Christ Jesus. And if you be Christ, then you are Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise." We get to be God's children together. We get to have the promise of leaving this world and going to heaven. And while we're here in the meantime, we do have a document given by a higher being that actually gives us the best chances of peaceful cohabitation. Now, what's wrong with that? There are these things that you can nitpick at and you can bicker about, but I'm saying at the end of the day, men and women get to be saved together, and there's nothing better than that. Now, I'm out of time and I got to go. As I'm going out, tune back in tonight at 9 o'clock, tomorrow night at 8 p.m. for more What Does the Bible Say? Tell your friends about the YouTube channel. Email me so you can get on the informer list. I have to go. I hope you'll have a good rest of the day. We love you. God bless you. Keep asking, what does the Bible say? Just to keep the conversation going, they should be reasonable enough to do that. And they got to stop attacking the education of every person who comes out with any semblance of supporting the Bible. From the stuff that we talked about, I'm saying the principles that we talked about last week, be good to your neighbor. Don't be, the Old Testament does not condone slavery. The Old Testament does not condone racism. We've got more classes that we're going to do on this. This morning we're just simply talking about sensible hygiene practices of the people in the Old Testament so that you can be ready to do evangelism with anybody you come in contact with.